Hey guys, and welcome back to another YouTube video. In this video, I'll be going through my tips for round 11 and reviewing how I went in round 10 for tipping wise. And yeah, so before we get into the video, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload, and let's get into the video. So as you can see here, 6 out of 9 round for me, bottom 70% basically, and ranking now in the ESPN comp of 394,000 out of, I think, 813,000. So in the top half, which is good, especially after the bad start, but just flailing a little bit. Port's been really good recently, and I predicted Melbourne by 40 and got that one wrong. Then North versus Sydney, I got Sydney right in this pick. I picked Adelaide in this game, but they lost, and that was a bad one because that was one that I went against the grain. Geelong against Freo, didn't expect this, to be honest. So I picked Adelaide by 12 in this game and picked Geelong by 17. I got those two wrong. Then Brisbane I picked by 66, and then they ended up winning by 43, so not the worst pick. I picked Essendon by 13, and I knew this was going to be a tight game as they ended up winning by 1, and it was a good goal with about 40 seconds to go, was it? Or like 20 seconds to go. They won it extremely late, and I'm not going to say Dimmer is gone because of that. I think there was a lot of other factors, and the fact that he's had so much success with that side, he just needs a break. Honestly, he's one of the best coaches out there, and I'd love for him to be at the Swans, to be honest. Hawthorn I picked by 8, as I didn't expect the West Coast to be one of the worst sides in history in this game, as they effectively lost. After about 30 seconds in, they lost 142 to 20. They lost by 120. They lost by 116 points to the second worst team in the comp. So I don't even know where West Coast goes from here, and they're backing in Simpson. But they really should be getting rid of their list manager. This is almost unacceptable for a guy to not think about injury-prone players and to have so many injury-prone players and just give them the let-off because they're former premiership stars, even though they've gone 3-30 since beating Collingwood, which they really shouldn't have done. Or including that Collingwood game, I think. So maybe even not. So yeah, well they might have only won one game in a whole year since that Collingwood win, I think last year when no one knows how they won it. So they could have honestly won, they've only won one since, and I don't even remember who that was against. West Coast Eagles. Who did they somehow beat? I don't know who they beat. Lost. They beat Giants when Giants had like hell players out. So if that's really their only win of the year, when the Giants were playing bad, this is going to be bad for West Coast. And then, so got that tip right. Got Collingwood tip right as I tipped them by 19, and they ended up winning by 28, so pretty tight there. And then ended up going St Kilda by 12, by 23, and they ended up winning by 12 in the end. So I'm going to have to grab a pen. That's fine there. So this, for my tips this round, we'll go to the tipping this round. Hopefully a better round. Oh, this is a tough game because it's in the wet, so it should minimize the, I think it's going to be in the wet, or it's going to be in dewy conditions, minimizing the effect of Mackay and Curnow, I think. But I think Curnow is going to kick an absolute bag, like 4 or 5. I don't think Mackay is going to do much. But I still think the Swans could get it done here, as I think they almost have the better ruck department in Hickey, and McAndrew will be there rather than, I think the ruck department is going to be pretty much even, and that's one of the weakest points of the Swans. And I think the Swans will do better against a team that's going to just kick it around the back a lot, as I don't think I think that will help the Swans a lot more. So I think I'm going to go a little bit biased here and say the Swans are going to win this by 12 points. So if I go here and then go 12. Okay. And then you got St Kilda versus Hawthorn, and I think St Kilda win this, even though Hawthorn did have a massive win. St Kilda are getting some guys back. I think Membry's back, and King came. Did King come back, or was it the? I forget between those brothers if it was the St Kilda King or it was the Gold Coast King that came back. I think it was the St Kilda guy. He came back and played actually really well. And they've got Membry coming back, so even though Owens is probably going to be out, I think they'll be able to handle it. So I'm going to go St Kilda by 23 points, and I think they'll also want to start to solidify that top 8 spot. Then you have Melbourne versus Fremantle, and this is an interesting one because Fremantle are actually in some really good form at the moment, and Melbourne just lost, but Melbourne have beaten Hawthorn. That should be an easy win. Gold Coast, they barely beat. North Melbourne, they absolutely thumped. And I'm pretty sure, did they play West Coast? No, they played Richmond too. They should have beat as well. So this is a tough one to pick. And Freo beat Hawthorn, Sydney, and Geelong. So do I go against the grain and say that Fremantle are going to win because... this is a tough one. At least I know Geelong's going to win that game, so I can pick that. Fremantle, yeah, I'm going to go with Fremantle in this game. Yes, it's probably against what should happen, but I think also you've got, you've got Hunter out as well for, Hunter, and you've got Oliver out for Melbourne. And you've got potentially issues with Sarong being out, but you got Brayshaw back to his best as well. So I'm going to go Freo in a close one by 7 points. Then I'm going to go Geelong by 65 because GWS have so many injuries. Gold Coast against Western Bulldogs. I think Western Bulldogs win this game, and they win it by 20. Then you got West Coast Eagles against Essendon. Essendon are going to romp that home even without a midfield because West Coast are literally worse than a waffle side at this point. I think their waffle side is literally worse than about a Div 2 or 3 men's side at this point. They are just in dire straits with their whole team. And so West Coast are going to lose this game, and I think they're going to lose it by like 72 points. So watch them actually go out and win this game and chuck it back in my face. Richmond against Port. I think Port's probably going to win this game. Richmond, they had a narrow loss, wasn't it? A narrow loss to Essendon. They beat Geelong. Don't know how they did that, and they beat West Coast, which should be understandable. Lost to Gold Coast and lost to Melbourne. So I'm going to go with Port, and I'm going to go Port by 26 points. Then you have Collingwood, North Melbourne. Collingwood, that's a pretty simple game to predict, and Collingwood are probably going to win this now by... I think they're going to win it by 29. I think North do have some guys returning, but Shield, was it? Did he enter protocols as well for concussion, which sparked more controversy about it actually being cramp or concussion with the illegal substitution. But we'll take the win gladly and the 4 points. But I just think with Collingwood, they've got Cameron back to probably unlimited rotation, as in not going to be on the bench, restricted minutes. You've also got some other guys coming back, and they're at the point now where they can start resting guys because they're so far and away the most consistent team in the comp. Like, you've got Brisbane here, who's not far behind them, to be honest. Then you've got Port here, who I don't know how they keep on doing it. They've won pretty convincingly in some games, but they've won the close games. They've won already probably, I'm guessing, 4 or 5 under 10 points. So they're doing sort of what Collingwood did last year to keep themselves up there. Then you got Brisbane versus Adelaide, and Brisbane just look far and away. There's like them and Collingwood, and then almost the rest of the comp in terms of scoring, like beating teams out comfortably, etc. Like Port is still there with them on what are they on? 8-2, is it? 8-2 wins, 8 wins, 2 losses. So they're still there with them. But Brisbane are just far and away beating teams actually by smoking them rather than Port. Basically, aside from beating up the bottom 3 or so teams, if you look here, they beat North Melbourne convincingly. They beat Melbourne by 4 points. let's see here, beat Essendon by 5, beat St Kilda by 7. Like, aside from the games against the bottom 3 or 4 teams in terms of West Coast, North Melbourne, I don't know if they've played Hawthorn or GWS. I don't think they've won a game by more than about 10, 15 points. I could be completely wrong, but I think that's what's happening. So that's why I don't think they're on the same level as Brisbane, and that's why I think Brisbane win this game by 37 points, as I think we're seeing a slight dip in form from Dawson, and I think Laird will probably help in picking that up. So you'll get probably only a loss of about 5% in that midfield. But I just think no one can really run with what Danaher's doing at the moment. And also, I think that you'll see, is Hipwood even playing at this point? Hipwood, I think, has a good chance of being really influential in this game. Hipwood's not been influential, actually, in the last couple of games. Still kicking at least a goal a game, pretty much. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. And those are my tips. So, now if I go back here, that's basically the video, and I'll see you guys in another one. Thanks, guys. Goodbye.